Well, let's talk about where public opinion stands right now with both the leaders and the political parties. Polls analyst Éric Grenier is the founder and the writer of the Writ. Polls analyst Philippe Fournier is the founder and the writer of 338 Canada. Guys, I missed you. Thanks for joining me today.
Happy to be
Good evening, Michael.
Hello. So listen, I want to begin here with the Prime Minister. You know, slightly more than 100 days since he was first sworn in as Liberal leader and Prime Minister, slightly more than 50 days since winning the election. You know, you get the sense that Mr. Carney is still in the midst of a honeymoon right now, but I wonder what the polls are saying. Éric, I'll get you to start us off.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that Mark Carney is still in the midst of a honeymoon. His approval rating numbers that we've seen in polling that's been done over the last few weeks is among the best we've seen for a prime minister since the last time there was a new guy in the job. Justin Trudeau, just shortly after they won in 2015, had very high approval ratings. Seeing the same kind of thing for Mark Carney. So it does seem to be largely driven by that change of face, because we've seen for Abacus data, for example, showing that satisfaction with the government has gone from very poor to suddenly very good, the kind of numbers the Liberals haven't had for years. So I think a lot of it is because there's a new face in that Prime Minister's chair, and it's Mark Carney.
Okay, you know, I'm going to bring up a board here. I think this was Angus Reid. Take a look at where the approval ratings are right now for Mark Carney, because you'll see, as you say, fairly high, the highest since Trudeau, although, you know, both Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau both enjoyed honeymoons initially. Philippe, what would you say about this moment of approval for Mark Carney? Very much the honeymoon, but would you tie to anything in particular?
Well, we could say that the change of moods that the electorate faced, around February and March has held throughout the election campaign, and it has held through the spring. Now, will it held through the summer? This is what we'll find out in a few weeks. But so far, it seems that Mr. Carney can do no wrong. His base really likes him. In the same poll, we saw among Bloc voters and NDP voters, I know there are fewer of them, but Mark Carney was at a plus 50 and plus 60 in favorability. This is astounding coming from voters of the opposition parties. So yes, a honeymoon for Mr. Carney. The question is, how long will it last?
Yeah, how long does it last? You know, we've had these little, I guess, markers, little victories that the Prime Minister can hold on to. You think about King Charles delivering the throne speech, a successful trip to Washington, a First Minister's meeting where he was praised, a drama-free G7 that just wrapped up in Kananaskis. I'm wondering, Éric, how has this helped build I guess the Mark Carney mystique or the reputation right now as he shows Canadians what a government in his name with a mandate is capable of doing?
I think why we're seeing that his numbers have been quite good since the election is that he is in many ways kind of delivering on what was expected from Canadians. Canadians saw Mark Carney as a bit of an antidote to both Pierre Poilievre but also Donald Trump, just that style of leadership that was a little bit more partisan, a little bit more abrasive, and in contrast to Justin Trudeau, less symbolic. And I think that's what we're seeing with Mark Carney, that it is much more of a focus, kind of business focus. You can call it that, as if it is running a Fortune 500 company. And I think that's, for the most part, what Canadians were expecting from Mark Carney. So far, he has delivered on that. But again, a lot of it is things that are going to come in the future. You know, is there going to be a deal with the United States? Are there going to be counter tariffs? Is anything from the defense spending pledges actually going to pay any benefits for Canadians going forward? So it's what normally happens at the beginning of a mandate. You start putting down some easy victories, but it's about whether the Liberals are actually going to be able to start delivering on that. And if we do find in the coming months and years that they failed to deliver on that, then I think there is a serious risk that you have the same kind of rejection and blowback that the Trudeau Liberals had when the rhetoric didn't live up to the reality. For now, Mark Carney has some time to actually get some results, but he'll have to have some results, or this could just be a one-term government.
Yeah, which really explains, Philippe, why the Carney government has been so intent on getting Bill 5 past the House of Commons and passed on to the Senate, trying to get it passed by July the 1st.
Yes, and you have to beat the iron while it's hot. And while I'm not an expert on policy, I've read many critiques of C5. This is the kind of bill that you try to pass when the electorate thinks you're walking on water. This would not work 2 or 3 years into a mandate. But to go back to the favorability numbers, it's not only the federal numbers nationwide that we were looking at. I'm looking at in Quebec plus 21 for Mr. Carney, and we just had a poll in Quebec that polled the favorability and appreciation levels of the provincial leaders. And strangely as it is, we can say that Mark Carney right now is the most popular politician in Quebec.
Yeah, interesting to note. Although when we talk about Mr. Carney doing so well in the polls, that obviously comes at the expense, federally at least, to the Conservatives and the Conservative leader. Éric, how are Canadians feeling about Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party right now?
Well, they don't see them as really a great option at the moment. We've had a few voting intentions polls that suggest the Conservative numbers have come down a bit. I wouldn't say we've had enough of those polls to really say if it's something real or not. But when you look at Pierre Poilievre's own personal numbers, there does seem to be a big problem there. Nanos Research came out with its latest iteration of the 4-week rolling poll that it does. And on the preferred prime minister question, Mark Carney was at 50%, which alone is a remarkable number, but Pierre Poilievre was at 24%. It was the lowest it has been since he became Conservative leader. So the fact that he lost an election, lost his seat, and now is kind of on the outside looking in, I think has really hurt his own personal numbers. More than I think the Conservative Party has been hurt by that. So I think that is something that he's going to have to work to fix over the next few months. Getting back in the House will, I think, be the first step towards that.
Yeah, and there is a by-election where he's going to try to get into the House fairly safe, a Conservative seat. I think the last time that the riding voted in the federal election was like 80% Conservative. So fairly fair seat for Pierre Poilievre to try to get back into the House of Commons. But, I'm going to pick up on a point that Éric said there, Philippe, this idea that the party fares better in the polls than does the leader. Yeah. I guess that then leads some to question whether or not Pierre Poilievre serves as a drag on the Conservative Party right now.
Well, he sure serves as a repellent for voters of the opposition parties, that's for sure, and for the Liberals. The Big Ten coalition that Mr. Poilievre tried to build worked to some extent. They did get 41% of the vote in the election, which is the best result ever for this iteration of the Conservatives. But when the poll that Éric just mentioned, where we see Mr. Poilievre underwater in favorability, among Conservative voters, 90% still view him favorably. So for now, at least, the base of the Conservatives really continue to like Pierre Poilievre, and it will be fascinating to see the build-up to the convention, the Conservative convention, where Mr. Poilievre will be tested on a vote of confidence of his leadership.
Okay, I have very little time, but I want to ask both of you, because I cheated before this interview. I listened to the two of you on the numbers. Great podcast, by the way. There, I'm plugging you guys. But, you were talking about how the leadership race is scheduled for January, it looks like at this point, taking place in Calgary. What impact will the choice of the city and the timing of the year for this review actually have on Pierre Poilievre's ability to get favorable review numbers from the base, Éric?
I think that it is a choice that is the safest choice that they could have made. If you're trying to look for a place where you can get a lot of Conservative voters who like that kind of conservatism, like someone who's going to be a local MP, someone who's from Alberta, you go to Calgary. There's going to be a lot of friendly voices there at that convention for Pierre Poilievre. And the fact that it is at the end of January, meaning there are travel limitations based on, if you want to be someone coming from Atlantic Canada or Quebec or Ontario trying to fly out to Calgary in the middle of the winter, maybe you might not want to try to take that trip. So I do think it is the safest kind of choice he could have made, which does suggest that maybe they weren't afraid that he would lose a membership vote, but they want to make sure that the number starts with a 9 and not with a 7 or an 8.
Mm-hmm. Philippe, last word to you.
Well, I would say I agree with Éric to some extent. There's also a very double-edged sword with this, because in Calgary, yes, there are many Conservatives in Alberta and in Calgary, but they expect winners. And I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for Mr. Poilievre on that convention floor. Okay, well, CPAC's going to be there, so we'll be reporting, but that's months down the road. There's a summer vacation between now and then. So heading into the summer vacation, Éric, Philippe, thank you very much for this.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Michael.